back to the studio, everybody. I'm Mrs. Lapka, and we're going to continue on part 2 on our series about Jean-Michel Basquiat. So yesterday we learned about this artist, Jean-Michel Basquiat. We learned a little bit about his biography through watching a video, and we talked about where he got his inspiration for his artwork. Yesterday, our goal was to draw the subject or the main part of our picture that we're going to be making. And yesterday, I made mine into a little skeleton portrait, but of course yours could be anything you want. So we can see in his artwork that we see a lot of figures that look like skeletons, and there's also a lot of heads that look like skulls. So that's why the subject or the main part of my picture looks like this. Yours could be totally different. Today we're going to focus on coloring in just the subject of our picture today, and we'll talk about the background tomorrow. So your goal today is to get your subject colored in. While we're coloring in the subject or the main part of our picture today, we want to keep in mind the inspiration and the work of Jean-Michel Basquiat in our artwork. So here's our artist, and we want to go over just a couple of things that he does in his artwork that might influence or inspire you in your own. And the first thing that we're going to do is add a symbol to our subject. Now, Jean-Michel added symbols to his. A lot of times he would add this crown. We talked about what a crown might mean in an artwork. What would it mean if you added a crown on top of someone? Or if you did a self-portrait of yourself and you added a crown to yourself, what does that say about you or how you feel about yourself? So that is one of the symbols that Jean-Michel puts in his artwork. Another one is a halo. So a lot of times we see these halos almost like what an angel would have above them. And what would a halo represent in artwork, do you think? If you did a self-portrait of yourself and you added a halo, what might that symbolize or mean? So the first thing that we're going to do today is add a symbol above the head of our subject that we made today. And I'm going to do either a crown or a halo. I haven't decided yet, but yours could be any symbol that you want. Something that has meaning, something that communicates something about your subject. Yours does not have to look anything at all like mine. Your artwork is yours alone, and you can get inspiration from anywhere else. The next thing that we're going to talk about is how Jean-Michel used mixed media in his artwork. So that means that he's using a lot of different types of art materials. So here maybe he drew these little circles with pencil, and maybe he did this red with paint, and he maybe did oil or chalk pastels or crayons and other parts. And so he mixed different types of art together when he was making his work. So we want to at least have more than one type of material that you're using in your artwork. Now, yesterday I used a Sharpie, you used a pencil, but hopefully at home you have other materials that you might be able to use. This could be something as simple as crayons or markers or colored pencils. I have these really fun twistable colored pencils here that I can use. You might have special pens, even a regular like blue or red pen could be really interesting. I've got my little robot here, and he is taking care of my crayons that I'm going to use today. Anything at all that you have at home that you can use is game for this project. So we also want to talk about the lines that Jean-Michel adds in his artwork. So one of the things that I love about his artwork are all these extra lines that he creates. So on the subject here, because we're not thinking about the background, I'm looking at all these extra outlines and these shapes that are made of lines, these circles and things that he adds on top. I love that about his artwork. It's one of the things that gives his artwork a lot of style. When you see one of his paintings, you know right away that it's his because you recognize this wacky style that he uses. So I'm going to be thinking about that while I'm doing mine. You can be thinking about it too if you like, or if you have another style in mind, go for it. You do you. Let's get started. So on this first part, I used my tempera paint to paint in most of my subject. I did leave some areas white because I want to make sure that I'm doing mixed media. So I'm going to be using other types of materials to fill in the inside. Now I could have just as easily, instead of painting with black tempera paint, I could have used a black marker or a black crayon or a Sharpie, or even colored in really darkly with a pencil if I wanted to get that black color. So there's a lot of different ways that I could have done that. I happen to have paint, so that's what I used. One of the things that I'm going to do to use my second media is to color over top of my paint. So I'm gonna let this paint dry, and then I'm gonna go over it with my oil pastels, which is really similar to crayons. So if you have crayons, that will go right over top of paint if you happen to do paint. But a lot of times crayons will just layer over top of something. And so we notice that in his artwork that he does a lot of overlapping. So you'll notice that on this critter here that he created, he painted it black, but then he went and drew over it with a white mixed media material. So that's what I'm gonna try to do on mine, but I'm gonna include some extra colors on mine because I love how colorful his artwork is. I'm also gonna make sure that I add that symbol above him. I think I've decided I'm gonna do a crown, but of course, as I mentioned earlier, you get to choose whatever you want yours to be. So now I'm done coloring in the subject of my painting, and you're gonna notice that we completed our goals today. So our first goal was to make sure that we have our subject colored in, that we've added some symbols to our project. So I added a crown above mine, maybe you added something different. And also our other goal was to use mixed media. So hopefully you used at least 2 different media types. I used a lot of different media in mine. My studio here is looking pretty messy. And then lastly, I used a little bit of inspiration from our artist and practiced with adding some crazy lines. Notice that I've got some style in my artwork where I allowed it to be pretty messy, just like our artist. And so I really took some inspiration from the pictures that I've printed of Michel Basquiat's work, and I incorporated that into my own. All right, guys, I hope you had fun doing this today, and I can't wait to talk to you tomorrow about how to decorate our backgrounds. See you then. Bye.